here.
Hi,
We are
the Dyslexia Duo.
Each week, we sit down with amazing people, including top researchers and experts in dyslexia, powerful advocates, affected individuals, and more.
Together, we break down the myths, share real stories, highlight research and strategies to advise our listeners about this prevalent learning disability. Come join us!
Hey, Aimee.
So we have a very special guest with us today, and we first met her at IDA in 2025, and she was just a fabulous guest that came on and did our speed dating podcast, basically. But Mary Ann, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody and tell them a little bit about you?
Thank you. And I want to thank Aimee and Melissa for giving me this opportunity. So I'm Mary Ann Coulson. I'm a mom of a dyslexic. That's how I love to describe myself. My son, Adam, is now 40 years old. And my husband, who has been a great supporter of both of ours, David, we've been married for almost 30 years. And I give him credit for helping Adam and I through so very much. Long ago, I taught high school and coached track out of university. And I was a math major, so I chose to go into finance and do something more with my math degree. So I did that for 35 years and retired about 4 years ago. So after that, I have been working on this book that I was so passionate about for probably 2 decades and took the time to finish it. And you'll see that I think my goal and our goal, both David, Adam, and I, is to help other families not go through all the difficulties that we experience. And there's so much more available than we started this decades ago. That's pretty much it. And I think I was transferred to Orchard Park, New York, home of the Buffalo Bills. Can I say that? Yay, home of the Buffalo Bills in 1995, and chose to stay instead of keep moving, chose to stay there and made that our community. And then David and I, because he's Canadian and lived in Toronto, we moved to Niagara Falls, Canada in 2017.
Wow. Is it snowing out there right now?
It is snowing.
I
Yes.
did see that.
Not
Okay.
much.
I saw someplace, it was the gal school that had snow. That's what I was seeing the snow at.
It's
Okay.
so pretty.
Yeah, it
Very
is
pretty.
very pretty. We don't get that very often here,
No, but we sure do love it when it happens.
Yes.
except for when it's snowmageddon. Don't like that. That was not fun.
So your book is titled Adam's Way. So what
Yes.
inspired you to write this book? Why is it titled Adam's Way? What do you want to be known about your story?
I knew early on, and we can talk about that also with some of the other questions. I knew early on that Adam was dyslexic. And so when he was struggling in school, I am a note taker and I love to do research. So I immediately started taking copious notes and I developed an outline. And it wasn't called Adam's Way, it was called My Journey Towards Peace. And I kept it with me all the time. And it is, I don't even remember how many pages long it is now. And that's what I used to start the book. But even before writing and using the outline, I started advocating and helping so many other parents who they thought their children might be dyslexic or who have been diagnosed with dyslexia. Because with this outline, I had done so much research to try to find a way to educate Adam. And so I thought, wouldn't it be great if those resources were in one place instead of scattered all over the place, which is what I had to do, all the research and notes that I had to take. So it was a chronological outline, my journey towards peace. And from there, I started helping other parents and other families a lot. Giving back, I think, is important and it's motivating, I think, for all of us. So I didn't want these families to experience some of the same difficulties we did. So I tried to make it easier for them. And telling Adam's story was something that I always had in the back of my mind because I love to read and I love to write, even though I majored in math. Weird.
So you're just
You're a good writer.
Yeah, yes. And you just got the big whole well-rounded brain.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
So was there a particular moment I mean, in his childhood or probably in adulthood where you thought, maybe I should write this and even publish this for other people to have? Was there like an aha moment that you had for that?
Oh, there was an aha moment, and I love your questions. And so there was a real aha moment here. And yes, and interesting for the listeners, dyslexia, that most dyslexic are visual learners. So this was a visual moment. And it's the first slide, Aimee, that I sent to you.
I'll share
Um,
that here. Let me share that
so
slide.
I used to often be able to take Adam out to the Gow school. I could take him off campus and we would have dinner, and we were sitting there and always talking about dyslexia in school and everything because he was much more comfortable talking about it now. And so he asked me to draw a square and a circle and a triangle. And I thought, well, that's, how hard is that? So here's my square and circle and triangle. So these 3 slides that Aimee's showing you are the original, and I kept it all these years and I included it in the book. So the next slide, Adam said, Mom, that's weird what I did. He said, that's not what I meant. And so Adam drew his version. So this version,
Wow.
I'm telling you, within seconds, like mine probably took longer than his. He did it within seconds. And he said, now I understand, if you go to the next slide, comparing yours to mine, that I see everything 3-dimensionally. And that was such an aha moment for me, because I think this drawing illustrates it better than I could have put it in words, how dyslexics think compared to me. And it helped me understand. So that was my aha moment. And I kept this and included it in the book.
Wow. I love that.
Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention as far as that the readers and listeners will hear me, I use the word learning differences instead of learning disabilities.
Okay.
Or learning disabled, because Adam and so many dyslexics are creative and gifted in so many ways. They just learn differently than I do and others. So his dyslexic traits allowed him to flourish, not to falter. So that's why it's not so much a disability as a learning difference.
That is an amazing realization. That is kind of in your face, Mom, draw this. No, this is what I meant. And I'm thinking of it from the dyslexic side. I'm thinking about it from the creative, the artistic. I was just reading an article today, and I can't remember who it was in my LinkedIn, about the job market and how that dyslexic thinking is being underutilized in the job market by employers, and that it should be that dyslexic thinking, being able to think outside the box and being creative with their responses.
Yes.
It's a viable marketing piece that people need to realize. And I love that illustration. I think your illustration, that early illustration that Adam made, shows that perfectly.
It does. It does, better than putting it in words, as I mentioned. And the critical thinking, they're critical thinkers. So that's just imperative in the workforce. So you're absolutely right. So we just need to spread the word.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what this podcast aims to do, is to spread the word as much as possible. So you had mentioned that early on, you kind of knew that he had dyslexia. And you mentioned you also take copious notes. So what were some of those notes saying? What did you feel like in those early years, emotionally, academically? How did he feel? Let's just focus on you right now. What were those like for you emotionally, for him, for the academic side of it, what you were getting back, feedback from the school, socially? What were you noticing?
I think emotionally, there was a lot of worrying about Adam. He's so young and he's having difficulty in school. And so early on, you have this fear, like what's going to happen and how do we help him? Emotionally, he was probably more frustrated and I was probably more scared. However, we both have, and we've been very careful to keep a positive outlook no matter what happens in our lives, because we all have adversity that we face. And so you have to face it with some kind of positiveness and with an end goal in mind of success. So I think together we did that. There were some troubling times when Adam was in middle school that I can talk about, and those were the most troubling times. And even Adam wasn't as cooperative as we wanted him to be, but fortunately, it all worked out for all of us. So I think Adam would have been frustrated and I would have been sometimes sad and scared.
Because of course you want to fix it, right? You just
Okay.
want to scoop them up, fix it,
Yes.
just make everything better.
And it's
Yeah.
not that easy.
No,
It's
Right.
not because I can't, because we can't fix it. That's not who we are. We're the leaders in trying to find the solutions, but we can't do the fixing, right?
right.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So how did you guys as a family go through assessment and diagnosis? I mean, where did y'all go to get your assessment done? And obviously he's dyslexic, so you know the diagnosis, but what was the process for that?
So we started in kindergarten and we were living in Maryland at the time. So his teacher, who was just a great teacher and she'd been teaching for decades, was struggling on how to teach Adam. She referred us to the Kennedy Institute. So that's the first place we went. It was a great time for Adam because we lived on the eastern shore of Maryland and we used to go to Baltimore. And at that time, the aquarium was relatively new. So that's the best place for Adam to learn, in aquariums and museums. And we used to go to plays all the time. He just loved all of that. So we used to go to the aquarium every time we went to the Kennedy Institute. And that was where it started. And they had mentioned auditory processing deficiency. And so that's
Mm.
where that some people think dyslexia is just reversing letters, and
Right.
it's not. It's clearly processing our language, which leads to that difficulty in reading and writing and spelling. And so from there, we started engaging experts to help us along the way. As far as how the family took it, that was with very mixed emotions, and everybody
Mm.
didn't agree. There was some disagreement that he's not dyslexic and we don't need to do this to him. And I took the other route and was strong and didn't get swayed by their negativity. So I stayed positive and kept going down the path I thought was best for Adam.
Why do you think they were saying no, he's not dyslexic, or being negative about the identification? Why do you think that was? A misunderstanding about what dyslexia is, maybe?
No, I think that it was more emotional from their perspective. I think that some parents, when they look back at their childhood in their school, they don't want their child to experience the same thing they did.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And yeah, I think that's probably narrows it down.
Okay, I understand that. Because I've encountered that in my years as a dyslexia therapist in the school setting, that I don't want to call it a grieving process for some parents, but it's almost like for some parents, they kind of have to grieve who they thought their child was. Whereas for me, not my kids aren't dyslexic, but for me, whenever we got an identification, it's like, thank God, now I know what
Mhm.
we can do, you know?
Right. Right. But if you label that, there's all that stress that comes with that label.
Yeah.
And I
you're-
think that's what hurts. Even when school was easy for me, so it hurts you to see that your child's struggling.
Yes.
So it's mixed emotions how we handled it. From the Kennedy Institute, we engaged an audiologist because of the processing. And I remember her words to this day, which one of your questions was, how do you advocate and help other parents? I think these stories help. So
Yes.
she said to me, Adam's very young. She said, Mary Ann, Adam does not have a learning disability. He has a teaching disability. And that gave me the hope I needed because I just needed to find him the right teachers.
Wow. There's a documentary called The Big Picture, and one of the dads in it, he's a well-known surgeon. And this documentary is 15 years old. He goes, I don't call it a learning disability. He goes, I call it a learning ability. They just have to know how to, kind of what you just said, how to instruct my child. He goes, because I'm a surgeon, obviously I have the ability to learn. They just have to tap into what it is.
Exactly.
So as far as the teaching disability is concerned, what did you do from there to get him the correct teaching?
Oh my goodness. Well, that was 10 years. So we don't have time. Years. What we did was we started with the audiologist and then went to the neuropsychologist. And I'm going to answer one of your questions that you asked because
That's fine.
it comes up every time. What's your first advice you give to parents? And it's always the same thing. You have to have a psychological educational evaluation done independently of the schools. It's not a negative. I'm not picking on the schools, but it's not a negative. But the schools have a tendency to be less specific and not use the word dyslexia if your child's dyslexic. And for various reasons, and also because they may not have the resources. So an independent evaluator will give you a detailed report, plus, very important, they'll give you a roadmap on what your child needs to help them. So we engaged a neuropsychologist, very notable in North Carolina, and he'd been researching dyslexics for 25 years. He specifically did studies on 50 young boys, and he did it over a 25-year period, and he was expert in dyslexia. So I engaged him to do the evaluations, and he gave me specific recommendations for Adam. And that's where a lot of the conflicts happened with the families, what to do and what not to do for Adam. And I also hired educational attorneys that specialize in education and disability law. So you take the evaluation from the psychologist, a neuropsychologist that's specific to the diagnosis and said, this is what your child needs. And then the attorney that specializes in the disability laws can say to the school, this is what this child is entitled to. So I used both.
So what are the concerns that the neuropsychologist brought up that your family members had a disagreement about? And if you don't want to share, that's okay.
That's a great question, because that is in probably half of the answers to the questions that you asked me. So no, it's great. And I don't mind at all. So he was very specific. So many people that have taught Adam have said to me that he's one of the most dyslexic students they had taught or they had experienced, including Dr. Wood, who I was referring to in North Carolina. And so he was very specific. He said Adam needed a residential setting. He needed to go to a boarding school. And I know that the listeners and the readers, a lot of parents don't want to send their child away. And I clearly understand that. Mm-hmm. But the reason he wanted it is because Adam had such a scattered schedule. So he's sitting in a classroom all day long, not really doing what he needed to do. And then we went off to sports, or we went off to the tutors, or we went off to Boy Scouts, and we're all over the place. And the gal school has everything under one umbrella. So he could do all of this and not be so scattered. And his mom didn't have to be the coach and the teacher and the mom. She could just be the mom, which was great guidance that was suggested to me. So the residential setting was definitely conflicting with the family. And I thought it was the most important thing to do for Adam. And coming full circle, even Adam said it was the best thing he could do. When he went to university, he said he was so much better prepared than a lot of his college classmates because he had gone to the boarding school. And given that, I know that the readers and listeners, everybody wouldn't be sending their child to the gal school. And that's not what the book's about. The book's about a parent taking these resources that we have used along the way to help them avoid the obstacles that we did, so that they can ensure that their child is successful, because everybody is not going to go to a boarding school.
Right.
But it worked for Adam, and it was the solution for Adam.
I have so many of my students who have a very similar schedule to what you were describing.
I know.
They're just so busy all the time. And I think about how they're sitting in a class working almost 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And they're sometimes 7 and 8 years old. And you just think about, oh my gosh, that's such a rigorous schedule for kids. It's rigorous for us as adults. Imagine being a kid. And then add on top of that, having a learning difference. Add on top of that, the strains of having possibly ADHD or any of the other struggles that kids face. It's really eye-opening. I hadn't thought about the boarding schools in that way, how it is that whole umbrella, and that it would cover some of those, all of those areas, really.
That's why I bring it up a lot because, like I said, parents don't want to do that. That's the last thing you want to do. But what was best for Adam?
You're making me think, in addition to the boarding school was the best thing for Adam, we know that our kids exist on a continuum. So some kids might be okay with minimal support. It just depends on the kid. Some kids might be
Right.
okay with dyslexia therapy. Some kids might be in
That's right.
dyslexia therapy for 3, 5, 7 years.
Mhm.
Some kids might need the boarding school setting. So that makes sense to me. But in addition to the boarding school setting, what additional supports, tools, or interventions do you feel like made the biggest difference? I mean, we already discussed the boarding school, and that was huge. But even now, as an adult, what does Adam use to support him in his job setting?
Assistive technology was not as available when Adam was in school, but we used what was available at the time. So I would say assistive technology is imperative. And if I had to start over today versus 20 years ago with Adam, that's something I would really look into. There's text to speech. There's programs that help children so they can write papers and they can correct their spelling. There's audiobooks. So it's so much different now. And Adam, to this day, he's very tech savvy, as this generation is. So he uses AI. He said he uses AI to help him write emails. It doesn't write the emails. He said it just helps me to write the emails. He uses construction and architectural programs in his day-to-day job every day, all day. It's the technology that makes a huge difference. I think in this day and age with these children.
I was on my social media and I was looking, there was some ad that came up, and I'm not going to say the name of the company, but it was talking about organizing your Gmail emails, and it organizes them by
Yes.
color. And then it types up a possible response for you to review that's in your tone. And I thought, this is a crazy age that we live in, that something AI can address possible emails in my tone of
Yes.
voice and leave it out there for me to review. Because I thought, if I ever get to that point where I'm so crazy busy that I need to do something like that, but I would do that. But I've been doing dyslexia therapy for a long time, and I can remember Dragon Speak. I think that was one of the first ones
Yes.
that came
It
out.
was.
And man, it was hard for my kids because I was trying to use it with my students.
It was.
And they were little kids, and little kids don't speak clearly sometimes. And it had to get used to the voice, and we had to practice over and over for each kid's account for them to get used to it. So assistive technology has come such a ways from the first Dragon Speak that was out there.
No, you're right. And it's amazing. And to finish answering the question, the other support, I think which saved Adam and was ultimately essential with his success is to find, and I'm going to choose Orton-Gillingham because that's what he used, but there's many methodologies out there to help teach children to read. And this book is about proven methods that help these children. Orton-Gillingham, earlier on, I would have specifically hired tutors before Adam went to the Gal School that were educated in Orton-Gillingham. At the Gal School, particularly, their whole curriculum is centered around reconstructive language. They refer to it as RL, and it's an Orton-based language mediation program. And within months, Adam learned to read. And I think the point I wanted to make after Melissa spoke was about these children sitting in a classroom all day. So before they tested Adam to go to the Gal School, and he doesn't mind me repeating this, he was reading on the kindergarten level. So he's in the 8th grade. And so the admissions director who tested him came in to David, and I was sometimes hysterical learning this and so saddened for Adam. He said, how is he functioning? This poor kid sitting in a classroom all day long, not participating with what the other kids are doing. He said, how is he even functioning? And so that's why the residential setting was so beneficial for Adam, because, you know, he was sitting in there all day long. And then I'm dragging him around all these other places. And when I sat down with somebody who was advising us and I told him what we were doing, he said, I'm just exhausted listening to you in this schedule. And he said, you know what? He said, you're his mom and you need to be his mom.
Yeah.
And you need to let everybody else do what they do for a living. And that
Yeah.
made a huge difference. So when Adam embraced the Orton-Gillingham and improved within a month, he became a totally different person. He loved school. He fit in because all the other kids around him were dyslexic as well, learning the same thing. He was excited about school and that bright smile of his return. Finding a tutor that could help your child. And specifically, these methodologies are proven that they can help these children read.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a heartwarming story. I just love to hear how he brightened up, just
Oh, yeah.
knowing that he could do it. He can do it. He just needed to learn the right way for
Right.
him. Does he wish anything could have been different in school to make the learning process easier, even at the gal school?
Does he wish anything could have been different? I don't know the answer to that. And I don't think that I would want anything different than what he experienced at the gal school. I know because when you read the book, there's these notes in here that Adam wrote to David and I, and he continues to write to us how grateful he is that we did this for him.
Yeah.
And every child that, or every friend that Adam had at Gal didn't turn out to be exactly like Adam. I mean, everybody learns differently and everybody's outcomes are different. But for Adam, I think he's very happy with where he is today.
Where is he today? Can we kind of
Today,
skip ahead to that?
he lives in St. Louis, Missouri, and he worked for a large grocery chain for decades. And now he works for a construction firm as a construction engineer in St. Louis, Missouri, which I'm very happy for because, and he's very happy there because it's interesting. He did design at the grocery building and refurbishing new stores for over a decade. And he got 2 degrees. He got a degree in construction management and architectural engineering technology. And so he designed for 10 years and now he's adding the construction component. And I'm just so happy for him because he's working in St. Louis, which is where his wife is from. Her family's from around St. Louis. So they both met at the University of Cincinnati. And I don't remember how many years, probably less than 10 years ago, they moved to St. Louis because Kristen is an architect and got a really good job offer. So they moved to St. Louis and Adam continued with the design and then just recently moved to the construction company. So they're both doing very well and have 2 beautiful granddaughters.
Oh, I was going to
Yeah.
ask if they had any kids. How wonderful.
I bet they're very visually gifted, their kids, having architecture and all this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny when they went to the first school to sit down to talk to the interviewing to go to the school on both ends, the interview on both sides. And so Adam's asking all these questions. She said, and I don't know if I have the story exactly right, but the woman said, are you a special education teacher or a teacher by trade? He goes, no, I'm not. I just went to a school and I understand Orton-Gillingham and methodologies to teach my child to read. And I want to make sure that gets done.
Oh, that's
So-
awesome.
Nice. Very nice. So it sounds like he's working a little bit more with the 3D and the perception, the visual perception. But in addition to that, what strengths or talents became more visible? Obviously, the artistry piece is there. And obviously, we know dyslexia played a role probably in that. But what other strengths and talents did you happen to see develop as he was getting older?
I think he also was able to be organized. And so I remember I used to put colored crates in his room so he could put his little cars in this one and his other specific toys. I've forgotten all the toys, but those little figures in one, cars in one, Legos in another. And I found that he couldn't do that. And I used to give him these things to do. I'm say, Adam, let's do this and this. And he'd say to me, he goes, Mother, you gave me 5 things to do. I can't, don't do that. Give me one thing to do, and then I'll go on to the next.
That's good.
So he learned to be organized. And because of the structure, he needed the structure, and the structure was good. And again, me sitting down and trying to do that every night with his homework or doing it on weekends, doing projects, became very stressful and frustrating for him, for me to be sitting there doing that. So that was so beneficial for Adam. He also started writing poetry.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't even know that he was so talented in music. They were looking for me during one of the GAL graduations because Adam was about ready to get an award and they couldn't find me. I was in the back of the room, and I was surprised, pleasantly surprised, because he won a music award for writing his own song with his guitar and won the music award at the school. He loves music. And I sent you that email that he put together because he said music centers me, and I'm just not very musically inclined. So he writes poetry. He wrote the music. He loved to draw. And I've told the story many times, which is how I knew he was probably dyslexic. He wouldn't let me sit down and read to him. All he wanted to do was build Legos. Wanted to build Legos or sit and paint for hours or draw. But don't make me sit in your lap and read a book. I'm not interested.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah, and I have adult friends of mine who are both they're twin sisters, and they're both dyslexia therapists, and they're both not only dyslexic but they're ADHD. And they talked about how being a dyslexia therapist actually helped them become more organized, because it's by force. You have to, in order to succeed at your job, and especially in dyslexia therapy, you have to be uber organized for all the groups that come in and all the things that you have to do. So I think that it's that, I guess, that self-realization that a lot of our kiddos have. Hey, have a deficit here. This is how I'm going to work with this so that I can be successful in this. I think that's interesting, honestly.
And actually, to that point, there's so much hope for all of these children because they can be successful. And that's what this is all about. How do we help them do that? And getting the word out that it's not a disability and you're going to have every opportunity that anybody else has. So I think what we learned best for Adam is to work with his strengths. So he has wonderful traits, that creativity and the critical thinking that you talked about. And he flourished with those traits.
Absolutely.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Hi, this is Aimee Rodenroth, and as part of the Dyslexia Duo podcast team and owner of Discovery Dyslexia Services, I want to talk to you about my business. Our COUT-trained team offers expert virtual or in-person therapy located in Prosper, Texas, using proven dyslexia curricula like Take Flight, Build, MTA, Alphabetic Phonics, and Reading by Design. We also provide crucial independent evaluations and advocacy services. Don't wait. Empower your child today. Visit www.discovereed.com to learn more. That again is www.discovereed.com. Discovereed, covering all your dyslexia needs.
Hi, this is Melissa with Kids First Dyslexia Services. I am excited to share with you my private practice. Kids First Dyslexia Services is a private practice that specializes in dyslexia therapy. Each one-on-one session focuses on instruction specific to your child's needs in a nurturing environment that develops self-esteem, builds confidence, and fosters a sense of accomplishment. resulting in happier kids with higher levels of achievement. We provide a professional, personalized experience, always putting the child first. We value the relationships with both our students and parents because strengthening skills and overcoming hurdles to achieve desired goals and success is a team effort. For more information, please visit www.kidsfirstdyslexia.com. That is www.kidsfirstdyslexia.com.
Let's return to the show.
So, is there a part of his journey that you're most proud of him overcoming, or something that he's done in his adult life that you're very proud of to this day? What do you feel about that?
When you asked me that question, I'm going to tell you how I answered the two. There were two things. Clearly, David and I are ecstatic, as are his in-laws, who are so supportive of Adam, that they have this beautiful family. They're both very successful. That's all we want for our children, right? To be able to be independent and be happy, which I'll circle back to Dr. Wood. He said to me, he said, Mary Ann, Adam has two different paths that he's about to go down. I think he was 13 at the time. And he said he's going down the wrong path where he is. And he said if he doesn't go down this other path, then he's not going to be able to work in society and with a normal career and a normal job. He really needs to be educated. Education is key for all these children. So when he graduated from the gal school, imagine that day. It was, I'm still emotional about it. And he gave the senior speech for the graduation class. And I was a nervous wreck because I didn't know if he had to read the speech or what was going on. And so he did a wonderful job. And then they gave Adam the Peter Gow Jr. Award, which is the highest award that any upperclassman can receive. And immediately when they announced his name on stage were his classmates, and they all stood up. So the whole audience, there were hundreds of people there, and he got a standing ovation. And so one of his teachers, who had been at the school for 25 years, said to me that, first of all, it was a unanimous decision for Adam to receive that award. And secondly, he'd been there for 25 years, and Adam's the first person who ever received a standing ovation. So that, I'm so proud of that. And then when he graduated from university, all of his hard work paid off. And the chancellor, when he was speaking, said that there were approximately 4,000 graduates that weekend. Imagine this, 4,000. And of those 4,000, 93 got 2 degrees, and Adam was one of those 93.
Wow.
Wow.
So those two are just so memorable, and we're so proud of him. Obviously, I'm still giddy and proud.
That's a testament not only to his hard work and his devotion, but to you as a mother
Thanks.
for devoting the time, the energy, the resources, and everything that you needed to do and that you wanted to do to support him. You just did an amazing job, obviously.
Thank you.
I just got chills from your story. So thanks for sharing that.
We talked about this a little bit, but before his identification and diagnosis of dyslexia, you knew that your child was bright. You knew he was intelligent. Did you feel like you were saying, hey, there's something going on? And maybe, I know you said he was an 8th grader reading on a kindergarten level. Maybe before 8th grade, did you say, hey, he's working really hard? And people are like, oh, it's going to come. That's what I usually hear from the parents when their kids are very intelligent. They're like, oh, it'll come. It'll come. Just give it. This is not his strength. Those types of things is what I hear. Did you ever felt like you were unheard or dismissed or anything like that in the early days?
You'll hear in the book that Adam lived in 5 different states by the time he was 11.
Yeah.
So he moved around a lot. So we went from school to school. And I would say that the teachers were so good to Adam. Adam was so respectful for the teachers and just basically a really good kid. So some children, when they faced with this, would be disruptive in a classroom, and that was never Adam. So Adam was always cooperative and tried so hard. These teachers did anything and everything to try to help him until middle school. And so that's to your question, was I dismissed? I was. I want to share one story about one teacher in the second grade that I think both of you will really appreciate. So he was in the second grade. We just moved to this town and he volunteered me to be the den mother of this den, this Boy Scouts. So this group would come over our house every Friday night, and their parents were brilliant. Their parents were scientists and engineers and all very brilliant people. And so the school was very good. And so his second grade teacher, this was his first year in New Jersey. We're sitting at the PTA meeting or whatever. I'm not sure what they call it anymore. We're sitting at the meeting going over his grades, and he had all C's and D's. They may have to edit crying if I start doing that again here. But anyway, he has all C's and D's. And she's telling me that she really thinks Adam needs to go into a special education class because he's in a regular class. And she said, Mary Ann, this is what's going on in the class. Adam isn't grasping everything. And all day long, all the children in this class are helping Adam. Instead of sometimes ostracizing him, they're all helping him. And she said, he has C's and D's. She said, he deserves an F here, and I don't have the heart to give it to him because he worked so hard. And so we're both crying. And so I said, well, thank you for this. And she said, oh my gosh, she said, do you know how many parents would be screaming at me because their report card of their child is all C's and D's?
Yeah. Yeah.
And she said they'd be screaming at me, and here you are thanking me for how good this school was. So that's what started the path of getting Adam the help that he needed, because the next year in the third grade, they really did that. But when he got into middle school, and this is where the friction with the family happened, the school he was at was in North Carolina and I was in New York. I'm going to add this story. I hope Adam doesn't mind if he ever listens to this. It was suggested, because we were going through separation and divorce, it was suggested that Adam live with me for so many reasons. We all agreed to have counseling and all this stuff and reports and everything done. It was suggested Adam live with me, but after a couple years, Adam insisted on going to North Carolina. So when he's 20 years old later, he tells us the reason he did that was because the kids found out he couldn't read in New York, and they started making fun of him because he was in special ed classes and he took a different bus to the school than the other kids. And he said, I thought if I moved, I'd have a new start and nobody would make fun of me. So he goes to North Carolina, and this is where the family feud started, whether sending him to the gal or not sending him to gal started. And the teachers there, he's reading on the kindergarten level, he'd been tested, said that he was their best reader and he doesn't need the accommodations that I was requesting. So they did dismiss me, but clearly I didn't give in to that. I had Dr. Wood helping me with what the path Adam needed. And then I had the education and disabilities lawyer saying this is what she's entitled to. And for the listeners, another important advocate that I hired was an education advocate. They're very affordable for parents. It's not like hiring the attorneys and the psychologists. They're very affordable. She was wonderful. She went to the IEP meetings with me. She spoke up when she needed to. She was an expert in disabilities and knew exactly what Adam needed. And so the school relented a bit as it relates to what they were going to do for Adam, but it was never going to be enough. The end of that story was they had told David and I that if Adam stayed there, which they wanted him to because they said he was his best reader and everybody loved him, they would give him a certificate of attendance instead of a high school diploma, which would not allow him to go to a university. So can you imagine how different his life would have been if we had stayed that course? So that's where the family feud was. Do we send him to a residential setting or keep him in a regular school setting? Ultimately, Adam saved the day and agreed to go to the gal school. But he said, I'm going for a year and then I want my life back. So once he got there, he loved it and didn't leave till he graduated.
And he got his life,
He did.
didn't he?
Yeah, he got his life back.
Yes. This is such a wonderful story to share with our listeners. And I think a lot of times when you're speaking, I'm thinking about the parents who are out there who maybe are scared to go down that path of getting an identification, figuring out what's causing the reading difficulties, things of that nature. And I honestly know several people who don't want a label at all. They can recognize that there's a difficulty. They don't want to get a label. So I believe that your story is going to help some people bridge that gap. But if you could help somebody else, could you give any additional guidance to parents that are beginning the journey or people who don't want to get a label?
I think if you get independent testing and get the detailed report, I'm not sure who you're going to share that with. This is all private, right? So are you saying that if they do get the independent testing, that it automatically will label the child and that's what they are afraid of?
Yes, some people.
So what other avenues could they go down? That's a tough one. I'm not sure I can think of, because since that's the first thing I recommend parents do is get their child independently tested. It's a good question. What else could they do if they don't want to do that? My perspective is about what's best for the child. When I was talking to the headmaster at the gal school, one of the students, after 2 weeks, went back home. And I said, and at one time it was an all boys boarding school. Why did he go home? He said, because his mother missed him. And I said, this doesn't have anything to do with his mother. This is about what's best for the child. So the reason that's a tough question for me is what's best for the child? You can always ask the child. You can ask them because they can be very profound at times. Adam used to get frustrated with me and my feelings would get hurt when I was constantly giving him advice and wanting to, how moms are. We're nurturing, right?
Yes.
We're nurturing. And I said, why are you being, I don't know what the word is I would have used. He wasn't ever belligerent, but negative, or why are you hurting my feelings? And he said, you know what, Mom, you try too hard and you come across as nagging. So he taught me to relax and learn to listen more. So listen. And so I've learned to listen more and give my opinions when asked, and so try not to meddle. So, maybe these parents should ask the child, what do you want? What are you comfortable with?
That's great advice.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody wanted to get your book, Adam's Way, how do they get a hold of it?
So my website is simple, adamsway.org.
All right.
You go to adamsway.org and it goes right to Amazon. There's a link.
Okay, very good. If you had a parent that bought this book, or maybe they were giving it as a gift to somebody else, what do you hope is the message that they take away from your book? Either as a parent, an educator, other students.
I think the most positive message is that they can overcome these obstacles and be very successful in life. So let's not give up. Don't give up on them, and don't give up on the schools, and don't give up on the opportunity that's ahead of them. Because ignoring it and not looking for avenues for them and just letting them sit in that classroom all day long without engaging with the other students isn't the answer.
Right. I agree.
So did writing the book clarify anything for you in particular, like changing your perspective on dyslexia or on learning or the educational environment, which I think you touched on a little bit earlier? Did it change anything about parenting for you and Adam?
Book just changed my whole perspective, because as I learned along the way, I have now an understanding of how dyslexics think. I wish I had understood that long ago. I think I would have handled better family, colleagues, and friends that were dyslexic because now I have an understanding. But I think in writing the book, sometimes moms have a tendency to feel guilty.
Mm.
When David met Adam and I, he said, "You have so much guilt for working all the time and working so hard. And we can't do everything." And so writing the book, I have no guilty feelings. I know what I did was the right thing to do and stayed the course. So I think that probably healed me from that because there was a lot of sleepless nights. So it was a roller coaster ride, which I think the book details, and I think that's a positive, showing the parents the ups and downs and how successful it could turn out to be. So yeah, no guilty feelings.
I know I appreciate that perspective as well, because I know when I met you at IDA, I was talking to you a little bit about my own guilt with my own son and not knowing what I could do better at the time to help him through his struggles with ADHD in school and wishing I had done things differently.
I wanted to say something about what Adam said. He was 15 at the time. I'm pretty sure it was 15. We're sitting there and I said to him, "Do you regret the fact that I didn't stay home and bake cookies?" Is probably what I said, which he used to say, "Susie homemaker, I am not." So he used to say that to me. And I said, "Do you regret that I didn't do that, that I worked all the time?" Because I really did work very long hours. He's so funny to think about it. He's 15. He goes, "You know what, Mom? I like who you are today and who you've become, and I like who I've become today." He's only 15. And he
Aw.
said, "I like who we both have become." And he said, "So I have no regrets at all."
So what does Adam think about the book?
So I asked him that. First of all, I think he's proud and he gives it to people at the school that I told you he was interviewing. And I think he gave them a copy. He is happy that this is an opportunity for parents and children to not face the same difficulties and adversity that we went through.
Yeah.
And the resources can help them. One aspect of writing the book is like, wouldn't it be great if all the resources were condensed into one piece instead of all scattered in my notes in my mountain of paper? So I think he's very proud of that. And he has no regrets at all that I published a personal story about him.
Sounds like he's proud of you.
Oh, yeah, well, proud of each other. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
So one of the questions we had asked, and I might just put this on the show notes because I'm reading the soundtrack questions, and you sent it to Adam saying, if your book had a soundtrack, what songs would be on it? And so
Yes.
I'm sitting here looking at the email from Adam. He's got Iggy Pop and Nine Inch Nails. These groups on here that I'm like, I know who they are, sort of. But I might put these on the show notes because it's really Pink Floyd was one of them. I do know what Pink Floyd is. I feel like these are great songs that maybe we should put on the show notes to say this is the soundtrack Adam would have playing in the background with his book.
That would be a great idea because he said not one album relates to what we went through. So he created, I sent him the question. So he created his own album. And I found it fascinating. So he has, I think, 5 artists here.
Yeah, he had Learning to Fly. God bless me. We had to do that on Rock Band all the time. What was the group?
Pink Floyd.
And then his last song is Heroes by David Bowie, which is one of my favorites.
Yes.
I love that song. Yeah, this is a great soundtrack. And I think people, one, need to buy your book. And 2,
thank you.
Download the Spotify list. Put that on there. It's Adam's soundtrack.
I'm telling you, he's musically inclined, but it's interesting because the one about comfortably numb.
Yes.
So,
Floyd,
and the word, so then he describes how that relates to dyslexia in his album, going through the motions, not fully present. We've talked about that. They're sitting there hours a day, not really being involved with the school.
Right.
You can see how musically inclined he is. I marvel at his ingenuity. I could have never done this. So
That was brilliant. I was
over the
reading through
top.
it. I was reading
It's
through it
over
and
the
going,
top.
these
Yeah.
are super smart responses because he didn't just give the artist and the title, he gave the why.
No. Right. Yeah.
We're about towards the end.
So I'll start the lightning round.
Yeah, we do the lightning round. And so I was
Yes.
joking with my husband because I always say to every guest, just say it, don't think about it. It's one of those things. And then he played to me a clip from Step Brothers where they did the same thing to each other. And I was like, he goes, is that what you were doing? I was like, no, I was doing Friends, but that's pretty funny too. He's threatened to put that clip in our show at some point.
The lightning round is questions we didn't send you. So we were just going to ask you really quick what you think. So what is one word to describe dyslexia?
Talented.
There you go. What's the best thing about raising a dyslexic child?
What's the best? Creativity.
Yes, that's what I would have gone with too.
Okay. So other than your book, what's your favorite resource for parents?
I would say Ronald Davis's book, The Gift of Dyslexia, because it describes how they think and gives you a clear understanding of what it's like to be dyslexic. Since I'm not, how do I understand it? And that book was very eye-opening to me.
Okay.
I love
All
it.
right. Going a little away from the dyslexia side, what's your dream vacation spot?
Well, we've always loved Aruba, golfing in Aruba with all the wind.
Okay. So what's a myth about dyslexia you wish would disappear?
That they're slow learners.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
What's the most surprising thing you learned about your son?
Okay, give me a second for that. There's his ability to stand in front of a group and speak eloquently.
Yeah.
Because I was afraid of, like I said, the senior speeches. Oh my goodness, can he do this? And he does it beautifully. I've seen him do it many times.
That's wonderful. Okay. So are you a morning writer or a late night writer?
I think both.
Oh, that's
I
good.
get it. I get it. Okay. Besides your own book, the book that changed you the most, besides your own.
Out of Africa.
We have a lot of questions. I just looked. That's a good book, though. I remember when that came out in the movie theaters in the 80s. Wasn't that Meryl Streep? Was she in that?
Yes. And I love the book, and she's a writer. I read the book. Her whole life. So it was interesting for me.
Yeah.
So what's a dream guest you'd love to have a conversation about dyslexia with?
Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh, why is that?
Because she's dyslexic.
Right.
And look how talented she is. I've loved her in all of her movies, and she's funny. And yeah, I think I could probably come up with many, but I think that's a good one.
Okay, one more question for you. What's one thing every parent should hear you say today? What's one thing you think they should walk away with?
Can I show that last slide?
Yeah, let me pull that up.
The slide with the quote. I think this is just like the square and circle and triangle. If people could take away, if we have time, do I have time to share this story?
Yeah.
Okay. I was getting conflicting reports. He's in kindergarten from his teachers. They were saying they're finding it very hard to teach Adam to learn to read and write. And that's when we went to the Kennedy Institute. However, his art teacher loved Adam in his classroom, and he didn't have any difficulty teaching him. So he says, Adam is working beautifully in art class. He loves to be creative and to work on ambitious construction projects. I marvel at his ability level and his sense of design. And he told me, he gave me one of Adam's pieces of artwork. He was 7, and he told me he's one of the most talented students he's ever had. He's in kindergarten. And he writes, this is from Adam's report card in kindergarten. So if the readers and the parents and the listeners could take this away, look at that, and look at what Adam is doing as a career now.
So the quote says, Adam is working beautifully in art class. He loves to be creative and to work on ambitious construction projects. I marvel at his ability level and his sense of design.
Can you show us the picture of his construction?
There's his senior
So
project.
this is his senior project. This is acrylic on oil. This was his art room at the Gal School. And you can see it's 3-dimensional.
Wow.
And so I use that as the cover of the book. So that's his senior project at Gal. And then the next
Okay.
slide is his senior project at the University of Cincinnati, where he had to prove that his design was structurally sound. So the quote slide is from kindergarten. And look at where Adam had ended up.
Right.
And he ended up there because he was educated. And wouldn't it be great if we could end illiteracy?
Oh, wouldn't it? Oh my gosh.
This is wonderful. And capitalize on people's strengths.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been such a great interview. And even with our technical difficulties in the beginning, you were not phased. So you did a great job. This was wonderful.
Thank
So
you.
everybody needs to run out and get Mary Ann Coulson's book, Adam's Way. She said there's a link on her website, or they could just go to Amazon and Google, or not Google because it's Amazon, type in Adam's Way and probably find it, I would imagine. So it's a great book. It's probably a great resource for any teacher that's out there that has students with dyslexia to give to the parents of the student with dyslexia. I think it would be a great resource.
Thank you, Mary Ann. This was wonderful.
Oh, thank you both for doing this. We appreciate it. Any way we can help. Giving back is important.
Absolutely. Okay, so this is Aimee.
And Melissa.
And we're the Dyslexia,
Dyslexia
Duo.
Duo.
Until next time, bye.
Bye.
The Dyslexia Duo hosts are Melissa Dean
And Aimee Rodenroth. The producer is Greg Rodenroth.
Dyslexia awareness is so important. Please share with your friends, family, and anyone who needs to know more about dyslexia.
Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X at The Dyslexia Duo.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.